my calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News Movie Night, where we take a particular movie that has either been recommended to us or that we are looking forward to. We dissect it, we analyze it, we give our ups and downs and everything in between. I'm your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drac. I hope everybody's having an awesome day or night when you're listening to this. And joining me is not only do I have my lovely wife, Andrea, here to join us for this. Andrea, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Aside from a bright light in your face and all of that. We're only doing that so that your brother can see us, but we're also being joined, speaking of, by the Shadow Blazer. He is in his shadow dimension while we are in the light dimension. How do you feel with this weird dichotomy happening via Discord?
I'm in the shadow realm. This much is true.
All right, so it's not causing you pain. That's good. I wanted to make sure because we could easily have that problem. So that being said, so you are doing well. And people might be wondering, why are we all getting together? Well, we've been trying to get all these movie reviews done that we actually did from our vacation last year. And we're literally to the finish line. We have like the last two, which all three of us watched. And this is the one I've actually been looking forward to the most because out of the 6 movies? Yeah, 6 movies that we did. This is probably the one that I think I and we enjoyed the most. Would I be safe in saying that?
I'd say so.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Sure.
Yeah, it actually was. It was actually pretty dang good. And today we're going to be talking about Ghostbusters Afterlife. So before we get into the film itself, we have to do a little bit of background here. And that's always fun. But we're just going to go ahead and get the big elephant out of the way right off the bat. For all the people who are wondering, have we seen the previous Ghostbusters films? You know, those films that constantly get referenced in past Drac and Shadow videos and all that? I have a very simple answer for you all. No.
No, not at all.
No. We have... What, there are Ghostbusters movies before 2016? What? That doesn't... That's not right. Right, Alex?
No, it can't possibly be.
It can't possibly be, but it might be a sign from God, but don't quote me on that. So at that point, yes, we have seen the movies. We like them, right?
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that might be different is I know that people love the first film and adore it. It's just usually the second film that kind of gets a little bit of division. Because some love it for its comedy, some love it for its ideas, but, you know, the one thing they can all agree on is it better than the first? Probably not.
No, but it's a good movie in its own right, I think.
It's so good, it had Vigo in it. I just love that accent, man. It was so great. So we have that background, but here's where the background gets complicated. Because then we had a reboot in 2016. And so at that point, I have no problem saying I have seen Ghostbusters 2016. And if you don't believe me, I have a video with former co-host Stephen Romney where him and me both dissected the hell out of it. Andrea, I believe you've seen it in...
I've never actually seen it.
Oh, you've never... So, like, when it's come up on ABC Family, you've never watched it? Okay, all right. So you haven't seen it. Alex, have you seen Ghostbusters 2016?
No, I've never seen it.
Okay, so really quick, explain why, now that there's been a couple of years at this point, why you guys have not seen the film.
Never got around to it, I guess.
Okay, all right. So it wasn't because of, you know, the bad things that maybe I was saying or that you heard other people saying or the good things or whatever. You just never got around to it.
Yep.
Okay. Alex, is that the same for you?
I was never interested in it. I never wanted a Ghostbusters reboot or remake or reimagining or whatever.
Wait. Are you saying that you are with that bigot James Rolfe in the fact that you just outright refused to see it?
Yes. I just refused to see it. because I just didn't care. I didn't
Right.
want to. I didn't want to see it.
I have no problem saying I saw it because it was free. All right. I went to a test screening of Ghostbusters 2016 and I didn't like it. And I'm so glad I never spent money on it. So at that point, I am the only one that has that experience. If you guys, if anybody who's listening who is brand spanking new wants to see my opinion on it, I will link that video where me and Stephen Romney just take that movie apart. And we didn't do it from the hater standpoint. We actually did it from very methodically. We did it from a filmmaking standpoint, from a story standpoint, from a character standpoint, all of it. And I wholeheartedly recommend that video. It was actually really well done in the way that we approached it. But that being said, obviously, that is where things got kind of divisive. So 2016, a lot of people want to say divided the fan base. I would argue it really didn't. If it divided anything, it basically created a lot of people like Alex, where they were very apathetic. They didn't want to see anything Ghostbusters related after that because they just didn't have faith that it was going to be good. Or you had the pro Ghostbusters 2016 people who thought that literally they ought to erase the two other films and make 2016 the only canon film that ever existed. And no, I'm not exaggerating. That is actually an argument people put up on social media, is that the other two should be abolished from all history.
No offense, but 2016 probably wouldn't exist if the originals never did.
Funniest thing about that, right? So that being said, then we start getting the trailers for Afterlife. Did either of you watch those? Or were you just kind of still in that apathy mode of like, I don't care. I don't know if this is going to be good. I don't know if this is going to be bad. And I'm not even taking the risk.
I don't even think I ever saw any trailers.
I intentionally avoided trailers because I didn't want it to be bad.
I didn't see any trailers either. I think I still was kind of in that, the time to have done a sequel was like 30 years ago. And why do it now at this point?
Right. And what's funny is like I was intending on, I think you and I had both said this, I was intending on avoiding it altogether. And then when the reception started coming out for the film and everybody was loving it and loving everything that they did with it, except for the 2016 people, they were horribly offended by what was going on in that film. But then there were also people who did like 2016 who thought Afterlife was better. And so at that point, that actually was what kind of jerked me into wanting to at least give it a shot and see if maybe they had done something right. Because here's the thing, the biggest advertisement I heard from people was like, it was going to be like Stranger Things. I don't know about you guys. I haven't seen Stranger Things.
I haven't seen it either.
So that does nothing for me, right? Is like, I don't know what that means. But then we decided we were going to watch it. And, well, let's sum it up really quick. So was it good, bad? Where was it for Ghostbusters Afterlife, starting with Alex?
Yeah, I would say it was good.
I would say it was great. It was actually a pleasant surprise. Considering how 2016 went, this is what they should have done from the get-go. This feels like an actual legacy film to it. Because it respects what came before, and it is establishing its own new canon. Andrea, where are you at? Was it good, bad? Are you indifferent? Where are you?
I thought it was good.
I thought we all actually had a really great time watching it too.
And especially it kind of feels like it's like a sequel to the other two.
Mm-hmm. The only complaint right now that is not going to be about the film that I'm going to say is that it basically takes the Ghostbusters, the video game, which I really liked, it does make it non-canon. And so at that point, it's like, oh, I'm not happy about that, but I'm okay with the fact that they did that, if that makes sense. Because I still like the video game and what it did with the story, but this one did try to establish the canon a little differently. And so I'm okay with that. Let's really quick go into the positives here. What did we like about Ghostbusters Afterlife And like, what did it do right? Alex, do you want to start up on this one?
Sure. So I think, like you said, it was able to sort of start doing its own new thing with a new cast of characters, but still be able to kind of connect it in a way that felt pretty meaningful. So I enjoyed it for that much. I like the new characters. I like the new cast and the younger cast too. I think, yes, well, I've never seen Stranger Things. I do know what it is. I
Yeah,
get the gist of it. It's kind of a callback to 80s adventure movies that had like kid characters.
that's what I've
Think
heard,
Goonies.
but I've never been able to confirm it.
Yeah, like think Goonies or similar movies like that,
Yeah,
or E.T. even. So I can definitely see
basically the comparison that I've been given is like Goonies meets Neverending Story.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've never seen the show myself, but I know of it. I understand the concept behind it. So I can definitely see where that is into play with Ghostbusters with Afterlife. So for that I liked. I think it did great with bringing in this new cast of characters and finding an interesting way to kind of tie it back to the original cast.
Mm-hmm. That actually is a positive for me too. Is not only did it establish a new canon, new characters to follow, and got us to like those characters and understand and relate to those characters, but then it also paid its proper respect to the past and let them properly pass the torch, which I would argue 2016 did nothing of. They instead basically they didn't pass the torch. The girl Ghostbusters literally just ripped it out of Harold Ramis's dead fingers. And instead, this one graciously passed the torch, and it made more sense to put it in the hands of these new characters as opposed to just basically saying, well, you guys were doing it wrong for so many years, and we're going to do it right, and we've always had the right way. Instead, it just basically says, okay, you guys handled it from here on in, and now we're going to handle it, which is exactly how it should have been done in the first place.
Sure.
Andrea, what would you consider to be a positive?
I mean, I'm in agreement with what you guys said, and just basically, it's just nice. You may have you're following new characters, but at least one of them is related to one of the Ghostbusters members.
Yeah.
And I loved it how they kind of, since it's kind of sad that we, the person who played Egon passed away or what, but they kind of find a way to kind of justify his absence.
Well, somebody scared the crap out of me the other day because they thought that Bill Murray had passed away. It was like, but then it turned out to be, so basically, Alex will get the reference here, but Bill Murray got a Stan Lee. Where people thought Stan Lee was dead and turned out he wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
Scared the
Right.
bejeebers out of me earlier this week. And I'm like, no, not another one. But yeah.
But yeah, and it just, it was just a great way to kind of not necessarily try and find somebody to kind of replace Egon,
Mhm.
So they kind of made it like he ended up, like he died in the movie, just, in some way. So you don't feel like they have to find a replacement.
Yes. And what's actually funny is like we basically got the original 4 Ghostbusters replaced by a ghostbusting family, for lack of a better term. I mean, a majority, like we have an actual family in there, but then we have other people within that we could consider to be part of the family, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we instead, I'm not saying that the original 4 weren't a family. As far as I'm concerned, they are. But we basically had 4 guys replaced by a ghostbusting family, a ghostbusting legacy in that regard. So I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I keep cutting you off, Alex.
No, I'm just agreeing. That's okay.
Yeah. One positive that I'm actually going to give is in reference to the fact that I don't like that this took the canon of Ghostbusters, the video game, out. And it's actually one of the positives of this film for me, is that they built new canon in regard to it. So they still try to connect everything together. One of the things I love about Ghostbusters, the video game, is that you could make an argument for a lot of cases that the events of Ghostbusters 1 and 2 are unrelated. And so at that point, the video game went out of its way to say, no, they actually are related. And here's their connection, and we're still dealing with the exact same thing. And this film did that as well, by basically in kind of the same way, because it took Ivo Shandor, or Ivo Shandor. It's supposed to be Ivo Shandor. And they still made him kind of the overarching bad guy. They just explained it differently. So at that point, it's not horrible. Not by any stretch, but it does take what the video game did and kind of steamroll over it. So that's why I'm saying it's like it's a negative, but not really a negative, because they still built the world and told their own interpretation of Ivo Shandor. So I thought that was a huge positive. It's just all of the backstory and the world building that they did with it. Alex, what would you say is another positive of Afterlife?
I agree. I liked the connections of Ivo Shandor, kind of harkening back a little more to the first film. I thought it was a nice way to kind of, once again, tie it back to sort of how everything sort of began with the Ghostbusters.
Mm-hmm.
Why all of a sudden ghosts started like plaguing New York City in the first place was, of course, because of that, because of the plans of Zool, the plans of Ivo Shandor, the plans of Gozer.
Yes.
So it does make perfect sense here.
Yeah, and the difference that we're talking about, because I'm going to assume that if you're listening to this, you've played both the game and you've seen Afterlife. So basically, what they did in terms of difference is where the game basically made everything Shandor's kind of doing. They instead said, no, this was all foretold by not Zool, Gozer. It basically, followers of Gozer had foretold a timeline. And so at that point, Ivo was just, he wasn't worthless. He was just a puppet. He was just a designated herald for it. So kind of went the Cthulhu route in regards to Ivo Shandor, which is totally fine. Mm-hmm. Like it totally worked. And by the way, if I ever get this opportunity, Alex, and I'm pretty sure if you ever get this opportunity to sit down in the room with J.K. Simmons one day, I just have to ask him this one question, which is, how do you feel that like the first half of your career is taken so seriously? Because in the first half of his career, for those who don't know, he played like military advisors, presidential advisors, like he was very serious characters. People might know he was the psychiatrist on Law and Order for the longest time. Like he was considered to be a very serious guy. And then the second half of his career is basically starting at Cave Johnson and moving on, where he basically became this walking meme that everybody loves and everybody has to have him play this character or whatever, because we have what? We have Cave Johnson, we have Omni-Man. He's played so many memeable characters. I would literally ask him, just like, how do you feel that like the first part of your career is the one that you like people could consider that you were being taken serious for, and the second half of your career, which is the most famous part, you're basically just a walking internet meme? I'd have to ask that question, because even people look at the Justice League movie and think that his Commissioner Gordon is funny. Okay, that's fine.
Well, can't forget J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah, J. Jonah Jameson is what. Actually, you know what? That would be the starting point right there. Is J. Jonah, because that's 2001. Yeah. So
2002, but yeah, and the fact that he's still playing that character to this day.
He's still playing that character to this day, and the reason we're bringing him up is because he's Ivo Shandor. Now, does he get lines in it? I don't think he does. If he maybe gets one, but
he does speak briefly. But yeah, he goes out pretty quickly, which I thought, to me, that would probably be my complaint with the film, is I thought they could have done more with him.
But the funniest thing is, like, I actually had this thought when we were watching the film. I'm like, if they actually do have Shandor in this, what's the chance that J.K. Simmons will be playing him? And then we saw the coffin where he was, and I'm just like, I freaking called it, and I didn't even mean to. J.K. Simmons is Ivo Shandor. All right, well, that's the way it goes. But anyway, sorry. Keep going, Alex. I had to bring up the whole Shandor thing. That was so weird.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, it was like I said, while I do enjoy kind of tying back to the original film,
mhm.
I don't think they needed to necessarily do it with Gozer. I feel like they could have maybe made Shandor the big bad this time,
I mean, the
especially
games
considering
did
he had-
that.
Yeah.
Because they
So it would have
basically
been
made it in the games where Shandor wanted to take Gozer's power. And that
Yeah.
would have been cool. And I kind of agree. I do like that concept. That instead it was just Shandor trying to get his hands on the powers of a god. I tend to agree. I mean, Andrea, would you have preferred Gozer, or would you have liked to have seen Shandor be the big bad?
I mean, I would love to see Shandor, really. But I'm not saying I complained to having Gozer again just because it kind of felt like we kind of came in complete circle from the,
Yeah.
just because the original Ghostbusters team faced that as their first,
Yes.
major villain or whatever. And now the new team is kind of.
And it kind of felt like Gozer was only put in there to have a callback to the original team. And so at that point, I think you could have gotten away with Shandor being the bad guy.
I mean, I think it was kind of nice just to kind of reintroduce them back into, even if they played a small role, but it was kind of nice to kind of have a callback to the original team.
Which to me, like, all of this is still way better than what 2016 did. And are people ready to hear my, like, one positive thing that I have to say about 2016? Are you ready?
What? You actually?
I actually do have one. It's unfortunate they ruined it, but in the end of the movie, they actually teased, and I actually did look this up after me and Romney did the video. What they actually tried to tease a big bad, and that big bad was a character, believe it or not, from the real Ghostbusters cartoon. So they tried to create a big bad for this 2016 universe that was established from the real Ghostbusters cartoon. It's just too bad that that lasted for about 5 minutes, and then they made that villain totally and wholly ineffectual, and it wasn't worth any of the buildup. So, but I did actually like that because, like, we have generations now that haven't seen the movies, but the cartoons, like, those are still in syndication. I will still find random channels that are playing the real Ghostbusters. So at that point, that would have been a cool thing to establish the cartoon villains, because in my opinion, that's the way to establish kind of new canon, new villains, new big bosses to fight. And it's just unfortunate that 2016 didn't follow through with it. But there you go. That was like my one positive. I'm like, wow, you actually delved into Ghostbusters lore. It's just too bad you didn't do anything with it. So, okay. Andrea, what's another positive that you would give Ghostbusters Afterlife?
There was just some great humor in it.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of really great humorous moments.
And I just like what was her name?
Are you talking the main character?
Yeah.
I can't remember her name either, but yeah, we're talking
I want to say her name is B or something, but I don't know if that's right.
Alex, to the internet, because I don't have my phone on me. But
the girl character, right?
The lead girl, the granddaughter of Egon. So yeah, I agree. She actually was really good, and I actually like her because she was a female Egon.
Yeah, and she took an interest on wanting to learn a lot more about her grandfather.
Yes, but not only that, she also had all of Egon's flaws. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, all the times that she tried to tell a joke, I'm pretty sure that's how Egon would tell that joke.
Mm-hmm.
And it would go entirely the way that you would think it would. And so I love the fact that they really tried to say, this is a female Egon. Without basically saying, like, this is a female Egon and you will accept it. They made it naturally feel like, okay, yeah, this is in the blood. So at that point, it's totally fine. But then they also they gave her aspects that I don't think Egon would have had. For example, her concept of empathy. She actually could feel things compared to Egon, which was kind of surprising. Okay, so another positive that I would give the film is that kind of in conjunction with what you're saying, Andrea, where it was still a funny movie. It still had a lot of humor. I like the fact that it knew its audience. Because when Ghostbusters, the first film, came out, yes, there's a lot of kiddie humor in the first film, but a lot of it is adult humor.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those examples of like, yes, this is built for kids, but we're really just building it for the adults so they can be entertained while their kids are being entertained by proton packs, kind of thing. And so the opposite is true here, where it isn't really built for adults. It's built as a family film. It's built to have kiddie humor. There is adult humor in it. And it's just not as prevalent as it is in the first film, but that's because your main characters are kids. So you're seeing things more from the kids' perspective than you are from the adults' perspective. I want to say the only adults really that we follow in this entire film are Egon's daughter, her name is escaping me too, and Paul Rudd's character. And that's it. Like, these are the adults that we get to follow. The rest are kids. And after that, like, everything after that is just lore at that point. So I like the fact that they said, you know what? We've got a bunch of kid Ghostbusters. We're going to have kids' jokes in it. So, like, what's the first thing that would happen when you show the Ecto-1? Okay, we're going to go spin cookies out in a field. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what kids would do. So I like the fact that they knew their audience and they played well to it. And much like the first film, nobody walked away bored. Because even the adults got something that they could sink their teeth into, and the kids got plenty. What's another positive that you would have, Alex?
It's a great cast, a great, well acted between the kid actors and the adult actors alike. I mean, obviously you got people like Paul Rudd in this, and
I think that was actually a really good casting, especially considering his popularity because of the Ant-Man movies. That was a really good casting. Yeah,
so well done. And again, from the young cast, Carrie Coon, that Carrie Coon's the adult actress. Sorry, I think McKenna Grace. I'm looking right now. I actually,
yep.
Jeez. McKenna Grace, yes. McKenna Grace is the younger Phoebe Spangler. So she's
Phoebe Spangler. There we go.
I knew it was started with a B, but I couldn't remember.
Yeah, so I mean, I would actually say, yeah, she probably gives the best performance out of this whole movie, and it's primarily because she had to work with what she had, for lack of a better term, because it's not like she could learn from Harold Ramis. She had to go to his past films and see how he did Egon. And I almost wonder if she also went to the cartoons a little bit, because there's a little bit of cartoon Egon in there too, just to try and put a character together, because this had to basically be like the Egon genes skip a generation. And so at that point, she still felt very much like the shut-in, but she also felt like a whole different character. So yeah, I would tend to agree. I think the cast is very well done. And in fact, one of the other credits that I'm going to give here is, Alex, I'm going to take you back to when we did our review of Spider-Man Homecoming and how much we hated the guy in the chair. All right. And for the people who want to give me crap about it, I don't hate the guy. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I didn't like the character. And now I can give you an example of a better guy in the chair because of BB's best friend. Because he's basically the same kind of character, except executed well.
Right.
I don't hate that character. I love that he has a bajillion different podcasts about the paranormal, and that he has to talk to everybody like they're on a podcast. I love that stuff. That works a lot better than what they did with Homecoming. It's like, I have to be the guy in the chair. No, you don't understand. I have to be the guy in the chair. Which, if I remember correctly, you didn't like either.
Not really. No.
Not he came off as a thud. What did you think of the character here?
Agree with you. I think he was really good here. I like this character a lot.
I actually think he had really great play off of Paul Rudd. because Paul Rudd had like his character had dealt with him for a while, and so he's like, I can't remember if it's like when they test the trap of the proton pack, but he basically looks at him and goes, "Wow, that's a nice replica." Like he's talking about the Ghostbusters themselves, and the fact that the kid who does all these paranormal podcasts doesn't know what he actually has in his hand.
Yeah.
I think it was the trap that he had. Yeah, that's right. He was trying to open it. And he's like, "You don't know what this is? And you do how many podcasts on the occult?" And the kid literally hangs his head and goes, "I feel so underachieved now." It's like, good God, this is the guy. This is what the guy in the chair should have been in Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I agree with you. I think the casting is very well done here. Now I know that we're sending complaints Gozer's way, not because of the actress. Because I have no problem saying that costume that they put her in, that was amazing. That's like what we wish the 80s costume could do. Our problem is that Gozer as a character didn't really need to be here. So, but that costume was still fucking amazing. And I know that it was practical effects. So I can only imagine like all the LEDs going off and giving the actress so many headaches during filming. But okay. So Andrea, do you have any other positives for the film?
No, I don't think I have any more.
Okay. I think I've pretty much kind of hit mine on the head. Alex, do you have any more? No? Okay. Because, I mean, we could go into...
Actually, yes, I do. I wanted to say, my favorite scene was definitely the little marshmallow man. That was so wonderful.
Yes.
Oh, God, that was so creepy.
The little Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, the tiny...
Actually, I'm going to go with you on this, because this is one of the other things that the original Ghostbusters did very well, is that, yes, it was a comedy. Nobody's disputing that. But it knew when to be a horror film.
Yeah.
So, like, for the best example that I could give for people is when they did the reveal of the librarian. You know, they knew that they couldn't do that in a comedic sense. They had to do it from a horror sense. This movie did that too. And I love them for it. And one of the ways that I would say as an example is the marshmallow babies. Because that scene it starts off cute, but holy shit, it gets warped really fast. Especially when you start seeing those marshmallow babies start killing each other. I still think one of the creepiest moments, and you guys can laugh at me for it, is when the one that gets on the barbecue and is slowly being melted away, and he's just like, no!
Yeah, don't they have it all like on a spit roast, basically?
No, it was like one of those Costco grills on it. Yeah. I think they had a rotisserie one too, but the one I'm talking about was like in one of those big Costco summer grills. And he literally walked onto it and started melting, and he was like, "Yay, this is amazing!" Or the other one where they are in the blender aisle, and one of them does a swan dive into the blender, and then the other one, just right as it hits the bottom, hits the button, and you see all the marshmallow go everywhere. The fact that it's the thing that makes it creepy, guys, is the fact that it's all happy. It's all being done from a sense of twisted innocence. But yeah, I actually think that was really well done in how they executed that, because they basically tried to, not point for point, but they tried to recreate what the movie did. So I'm totally on board with you on that one. Okay, so with positives comes negatives. What did this film do wrong in our eyes? And I have one little nitpick with it, which is not like, because here's the thing: if you took it away, it would hurt the film. But I did not like the fact that when they start things off, you don't know that they're talking about Egon being this deadbeat dad kind of thing, or that's kind of the element that they went with. But once they reveal that it is Egon, they kind of stayed way too much into it before they started having the elements of redeeming factors with him. But I don't know if I changed that. Because it feels like they hit him a little hard. especially when we found out the reasoning behind what he did. And maybe that's just me. What negatives do you guys have?
For me, well, I wish they would have acknowledged Ghostbusters 2 a little bit more.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm trying to think, what nods did they have to 2?
I don't think they had any, really. I don't think they acknowledged 2 at all in this.
I could have sworn they had like a Vigo reference or something like that. But yeah, a lot of it is based in the Ghostbusters 1. And so a complaint that I would have is that you still have the ambiguity on whether or not Ghostbusters 1 and 2 are connected. But I guess the argument could be made that the pit that Egon had rigged to constantly be blasted, maybe that was the River of Slime? I don't know. I think it's still a bit of a stretch in that regard. So I tend to agree with you. I think they could have tied those better.
Yeah, and we never hear about, Dana's son, who may or may not also be Peter's son. Probably not, actually.
That's right. We never heard about the kid.
Yeah.
That would have been a nice thing. Maybe they'll tie it in the sequel. I don't know.
We'll see. Yeah.
Kind of feels like that's kind of a lost thread at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. There's still a lot of lost stuff there, but I mean, we do have a sequel on the horizon, so maybe they'll tackle it there. But Andrea, do you have any negatives for the film?
I can't think of anything that I disliked about it, really.
Okay. And that's kind of my issue here is like I do have little nitpicks here and there. For example, the romance between the older son and the chick from the hamburger place.
Yeah, wasn't she
they had that awkward romance that they were trying to do.
Wasn't she also related to the cop or something?
Yeah, she was related to the cop. The awkward romance between the two of them, I think, was supposed to mirror Peter Venkman and Dana Barrett, and it kind of doesn't because it still feels way too high school in that regard. And the thing that made Peter Venkman and Dana Barrett was because that Peter Venkman never got the hint. Instead, it's just a high school kid. Basically, it's like the Transformers movies where Shia LaBeouf's character is constantly trying to get Megan Fox, except she's playing hard to get, kind of thing. Sorry, go ahead.
How did you feel about when they decided to kind of go the same route where the gatekeeper and the keymaster?
Which one?
Both of
them. Because remember, Zool gets 2 bodies.
I thought they...
Remember, they got her out of the mom's body, and then they got her in the girl's body.
That's true.
So, I mean, what the fact that they did the Paul Rudd and
kind of
her...
like the very similar how they did to the original, you know.
I'm okay with it.
It was kind of funny. Yeah.
I'm okay with it. I thought it was a little much to put her in the Zool dress.
That's true.
Because then that just makes you ask the question of like, how did she have the exact same outfit when I'm pretty sure modern fashion standards she wouldn't have a similar dress? But that's probably my only complaint there.
No, I still just find it hilarious about when, you know, Gozer's like, "Are you a god?" And like, "Now, Ray, you know what the answer is this time."
Yeah.
They were like, "Don't go saying the."
Right. Yeah, that's the thing is like a lot of the negatives to this film play into its positives. So it's kind of difficult. Like I do have nitpicks here and there.
I mean, I guess the only thing that kind of was kind of a sad thing is, you know, it's funny that when BB calls Ray about and asking about.
Well, this kind of plays into my complaint where they really tried to play Egon as like this deadbeat bastard, and especially in the case of Ray, where he was just like, well, he took all the supplies and he ran.
Yeah, like it didn't.
And the only way that we get kind of that explanation is through context that is being done through, spoiler, the Egon ghost. And so at that point, like, that's how we know, like, he wasn't the deadbeat that they all thought he was. but at the same time, I like how they did that.
I know.
I think actually one of the best scenes in the film is when the mom finds the secret workshop of Egon, and the Egon ghost the ghost of Egon points to the collage that he has of her. And basically, it's basically his subtle way of saying, I never forgot you. I kept track of you, even though I had this thing that I was doing. And so at that point, like, I don't like the fact that they played Egon off as a crackpot, but at the same time, he wasn't a crackpot.
And at the same time, you like the town he was living in, and they all thought he was like some.
But I actually want to bounce this off of you guys. I've seen a lot of people complain that is out of character for Egon, because Egon was so detached from everything that here's the way that they put it. It's plausible that he would have a family. Like he would have procreated, but it's implausible that he would have cared about them because they wouldn't be pertaining to his work.
And people change, so
that's kind of my argument with it, is that they basically tried to showcase that over time Egon's priorities changed. And maybe that was because of the isolation. Because he had to do what he had to do. But I like the fact that they showed that, as the years wore on, Egon grew a heart, and he cared about what was going on in his family, and he cared about being able to finally finish this fight. I have to bring this up as a negative, just to ask you guys. A lot of people had the complaint that the tech that was being showcased here was basically too much Star Trek logic kind of thing. And the examples that get put up are the trap that he set up in the Gozer tomb, which was basically just shooting down a proton blast every now and again to make sure that river of spirits was always contained. And then the other one was the trap in the front lawn, that it was way too big and convoluted to make sense. Do you guys feel like that?
I not particularly, but I'm probably not the best person to ask about that. I can see why that might. People who probably have the more practical eye for things like engineering and electronics could probably tell you that maybe it's not the most practical, but it is stylish.
See, to me, maybe I'm the only one that looked at it this way because I have a fondness for the Ghostbusters cartoons and what they tried to do. I just looked at the way that those were set up as something that would have been made in the cartoon, because they literally looked and felt like something Egon would have made in the real Ghostbusters cartoon, right, Andrea?
I think so.
At that point, it made sense to me because, in a lot of those episodes, Egon had to jerry-rig something on the fly. And this was him jerry-rigging on the fly. Yeah, especially with the limited resources he had.
Yeah, well, didn't in the movie he say he discovered like a prediction of something coming true, but the rest of the team didn't really believe in him, and that's why he took all the stuff? And
they played that off in the crackpot theory with him. But I think they also showcased later, it wasn't that it came out of nowhere. He just did more digging into Shandor, and he came to that conclusion.
Oh yeah.
Am I wrong about that, Alex?
No,
I think that's how they justified it, is that he just did more digging into Shandor, and that's when he learned everything he needed to learn. Because one of the things I love about this is the way that they justified that the reason that Egon went to this town is because of the mine. Because the mine was a selenium mine, which, if people don't remember, the building that Dana Barrett lived in, its framing, its foundation was made of pure selenium, which came from this town. So at that point, like, they found ways to be able to link everything together and make it make sense. Is it stretched? Yeah, I think you could make that argument, but again, to me, it was just kind of like cartoon logic. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. Do either of you feel that, because ultimately we do get cameos. Do either of you feel like we should have gotten more cameos specifically from like Dana Barrett, from Janine, or maybe even a Slimer cameo in this? Because I have seen people saying there should have been a Slimer cameo because Slimer was like the lovable mascot of the Ghostbusters.
We should have had a Slimer cameo. I agree with that.
I would tend to argue you probably did with that Muncher ghost. They just tried to showcase that Slimer wasn't the only one, kind of thing. But I'm neither here nor there. I wasn't a big fan of Slimer in the past anyway, so that didn't really affect me.
It's just kind of too bad you only got.
But I mean, Janine does get a cameo. She technically was helping out with the estate, and then they did do the Easter egg at the end when she was meeting up with Winston. So she got that, and Dana does get a cameo.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah.
It's just too bad it was at the very end.
And I guess the argument there is just like, okay, well, do you make sure that every prominent character got... So what? Does that mean that we have to go see what the mayor of New York is doing in his retirement? No, not really.
I'm kind of surprised. It's too bad we did get a...
I mean, it might have been cool to have Rick Moranis show up. That might have been cool, but he's retired, so...
Which one is that one?
He was Vince Clortho in the original one.
Louis Tully.
He was who?
Louis Tully. He was the accountant that got possessed by the other dog. And then in Ghostbusters 2, he's like the fifth Ghostbuster in that.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But Rick Moranis is long since retired. Actually, no, Rick Moranis passed away. That's right. So you wouldn't have been able to do that.
How long ago did he pass away?
Alive.
I thought he died because he got the crap beaten out of him, and I think he's still working on that. But maybe that's why I thought he had like a heart attack or something.
Ah, he's still alive. He's fine.
So then at that point, do we want him to?
Okay.
I mean, what my problem is, what would you do with him? I mean, he would see Paul Rudd and go, huh, I've been there.
Oh yeah, that would have been funny.
Just for that? I don't know. It actually might have been funny if he dug out his old uniform and we got to see the slime gun. But I don't know. That's kind of the difficult thing.
He could be married to Janine now because they had kind of a romance going in Ghostbusters 2.
They did. They didn't really tease it, but that's the other thing too, is that we do know that there's a sequel, so maybe they would work something out with Rick. I mean, I've already heard that according to the latest trailer, Walter Peck is coming back. So
yeah,
that'll be a fun cameo. To have Pecker come back. But yeah, I don't know if it would have made it better to just fill the thing up with cameos. I think that the way that they balanced it out worked because Ray is the only one that really needed to be a majority of the plot. And he is exactly in this film as much as he needed to be.
Agreed.
So I don't think you needed to fill it up with cameos. Oh, and really quick to all the people who have the problem with the tech, which makes more sense? What actually happened? I actually didn't even think about this until now. What makes more sense? The stuff that we got to see with like the gun taking care, or the proton pack taking care of the river of slime or the river of ghosts, or proton-based Call of Duty shotgun, which is what we got in 2016. That would be my argument. Because every piece of proton weaponry was basically a Call of Duty gun in 2016. That's literally how they thought about it. There was no such thing as capture streams anymore. It was all just like, oh, well, we're just going to shoot them.
Mm.
So that makes sense, right? Because we're not busting, we're killing now. So I think we've gone into the positives, we gone into the negatives. Here's the magical time of the podcast where we get to go and to do some clips. And this was actually really hard because if you think about it, a lot of this movie's best moments are quiet moments where you're listening. But if you're listening to an audio podcast, that clip does jack shit. So here we go. Let's go ahead and get into our first clip of Ghostbusters. I've actually tried to order these in the order that they actually happened in the movie. So are we ready for the first one?
Yep.
Obviously we can't play the whole clip, but we'll play as much as we can. So
Whoa. How'd you know how to fix it? I mean, no offense, but you are 12.
I kind of met my grandfather last night. He showed me what to do.
No way. Was he like howling and clanking chains?
No, that would have been weird.
okay, I had to have this moment really quick because this is just a perfect explanation of how the dialogue works in this film. It doesn't feel awkward. It doesn't feel like ham-fisted in there. This is literally how these two closet shut-in geeky characters would talk. And that's why it works. So, anything you guys want to add to that one?
And for
No.
me, you're right. It's a really clever scene. I like it.
Yes. Now, the next clip that we're actually going to do here is actually it part of the same clip, but we have to do the classic turning on the proton pack. I love the directional mic.
Safety's off. Her feet are planted. Her face is poised. Will this be the moment of her death? Nobody knows.
And there you go. I'll obviously cut it down a little bit because there's a lot of quiet in there, but obviously you had to have the first time firing the proton pack. And this is yet another example of this kid doing Guy in the Chair better than Spider-Man Homecoming. Because it doesn't make sense for him to be doing what he's doing, but it just works.
Mm-hmm.
So I love it. This will be edited out, obviously, but I love the fact that she takes out the proton blaster, and he takes out a directional mic for a podcast that's been holstered. I love that. That is so stupid. Okay, so the next clip that we have, this is obviously going into the backstory.
I need to know what's lurking inside.
No way. Killer replica.
Totally. A replica of what?
Trap. A ghost trap? Seriously? How do you, of all people, not know about this?
I'm ashamed.
Oh, I was obsessed. New York in the 80s? It's like The Walking Dead.
Then it just stopped?
I mean, there hasn't been a ghost sighting in 30 years.
And there you go. That's like the first hint that you get that the Ghostbusters in this reality are real.
Mm-hmm.
I love this moment, especially with the whole you're supposed to know about this and you don't know about it. I'm ashamed. I thought that was so delivered so freaking well. But this is another example of Paul Rudd being able to just hammer this home that he's the fanboy. He knows about the past events, and he is the only adult in this world that can relate to BB Spangler.
Mm-hmm.
So I absolutely love it. Yeah, thoughts on this, Alex?
It's perfect. It's just
Oh god, it's so good. And we can't play it obviously because that would definitely get us a flag on it. But him going back to old movie footage, but it's found footage on YouTube. That is so awesome.
Yeah, it's very clever.
Way better than anything 2016 ever did, guys. I have no problem saying that. So there you go. We have this clip. Now we can go into the lore. So here we go.
Something was coming and he knew it. I think these are years. 1883?
The Krakatoa eruption. The most violent volcanic activity in human history.
What happened in 1908?
Probably the Tunguska blast over Siberia.
1945. What didn't happen?
1984. Ghosts attack New York City.
The Manhattan Cross Rip.
It's a countdown.
Like a prophecy?
Did you guys hear that?
And there you go. This is basically what I was talking about earlier, where they, instead of having Shandor responsible for everything, they basically explained there's a timeline to a lot of these events. And the fact that we have this movie's guy in the chair, because I can't think of the kid's name, but this movie, like, he's literally point for point saying, oh, this cataclysmic event happened throughout this particular year. And then eventually we get to 1945, and he's not the only one talking, because then we have the girl step in and go, hey, what didn't happen in 1945? And then he finishes things off by basically, as soon as they say, ghosts invade New York, he's like, the Manhattan Cross Rip, which is what, occult people would call it. So this is basically how they justify the lore connecting. And I think this scene was really well done, considering it. Now, that being said, we do have complaints with it, obviously, Alex, because it doesn't really tie into it.
Yeah.
But
really does kind of gloss over too.
But it's still pretty freaking good, right? In the way that they explain it.
Absolutely.
So this is another time where they actually were able to pull in the lore and make it make sense, especially when they're in this abandoned mine and it looks like an ancient Tomb Raider-esque altar to Gozer.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that, and now we get to have the infamous phone call.
Raise a cult and we're closed.
Wait! I only get one phone call. I'm in prison.
Slammer, huh? I've been there myself. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm listening.
Are you Ray Stans, the Ghostbuster?
And now I'm hanging up.
Hang on, please. I'm calling about Egon Spangler.
Egon Spangler can rot in hell.
He died last week.
Oh, man. No kidding.
I want to stop the clip here because this is basically this is the point in the film where we go from Egon's a fucking crackpot and everybody hates him to now we're going to explain his motives. And Ray's delivery, I think, is the greatest. This is why I wouldn't change it, because Ray's delivery of it sets it really, really well. But I love the fact that we get to see a whole new Ray stance in this particular moment, where he's now just this cynic and doesn't like he is not the optimistic Ray that we've known in the previous movies. Am I wrong about that, Alex? This is like the great pivotal moment where they start talking positively about Egon, and
you're absolutely right.
I mean I think his is one of the last lines that is said badly about Egon, which is Egon Spangler can rot in hell.
Yeah.
And then eventually he starts going into the positive stuff. I also love, I don't know if you noticed this detail when we were watching the film, and maybe Dan Aykroyd wanted this specifically. On his arm, there is a tattoo of Revelation 6:12, which, if you remember from the first film, that's the Revelations verse that him and Winston were talking about in the car.
I didn't notice the tattoo. That's cool.
Go look it up. Yeah, they did a really good job too. They made it really faint, like he'd had it for years at that point.
What about the Revelation?
It's Revelation 6:12. It's when they were talking about the dead rising from the grave, and that's why they have so much business.
Oh.
And so he had it tattooed on his arm. So it was a nice little homage to what came before. So the next clip is from the same scene, but I wanted to do this first. So here we go.
Weren't you two friends?
That was a long time ago.
What happened to you guys?
Oh, well, look, when we started, busting ghosts was a gas. I mean, economy was good, Reagan years.
People believed in us. And things got slow, hauntings got thin. Venkman thought we did our job too well. Oh, we could barely keep up our mortgage. Some actor bought up most of Tribeca and we lost the firehouse. It's a Starbucks now.
So then you all just walked away?
Peter went back to academia. He's at SUNY Cortland now. He's a professor emeritus. He teaches advertising and promotion. Winston went into finance. He worked hard, coined a fortune, and I'm here.
Well, what about Egon?
Well, he wasn't helping. We went from 10 calls a week to 1 if we were lucky. And then Egon started to tell people that their little ghost problems didn't matter because the world was coming to an end. He got spooky, freaked me out. One morning I go to work. An Ecto-1, our old Cadillac, is gone. His neutrino thrower, collider pack, all the traps, 16 ounces of fuel isotope, all gone. He cleaned us out.
And that's where I'm ending it. So this is where we start to see like why a lot of the hatred happens here. And I love how this backstory is basically explained because it's told from Ray Stance's point of view, but it almost feels unobjective. Or it almost feels objective. It feels unbiased. In the fact that we start to see that slow shift in what Egon was doing compared to the Egon that we knew, which was the one that collected spores, kind of thing. So I love how Dan Aykroyd delivered this. And what's funny is I don't know how much homework you've done into this, Alex. Dan didn't initially like a lot of the stuff that they were doing. He wasn't entirely on board with what happened with him in 2016 either. Because he was just basically a taxi driver in that as a cameo. He didn't really like the disparaging that was going on in this. But then ultimately he's kind of come around now that he's heard kind of the film's reaction to it.
Right. I didn't know that.
I think in a lot of cases it was just he didn't want to disparage Harold. And I don't think that would have come across that way, but I do find it interesting. He didn't want to be like constantly disparaging Egon in the film. He instead wanted to, be more the optimistic Ray that he'd always been.
Yeah.
And if I'm being honest, I don't think you could have had that happen. I don't think he could have been optimistic because otherwise the Ghostbusters would have still been in business, right?
Right.
So, there you go. I love this conversation. It's a real big turning point in the film. Here, this is the scene you're talking about, Alex. We had to have a clip of it, but unfortunately a lot of it's quiet, so I'm gathering what I can. That Petco dog food is the shit.
Hey.
And there you go. So the problem is that the marshmallow babies are stupid levels of quiet in their scenes, and that's part of what happened there. So I had to keep it to just the Vince Clortho dog, but that whole scene, as Alex was saying, is just great. Mm-hmm. Being able to see like all of this stuff happening in a Walmart of all places, it just works. So take it away, Alex. What makes this scene work?
It's just like that slow reaction, the slow build up to the dog being there, and it's like he's just eating bags and bags of dog food. It's hilarious.
Yeah, and it's not even him that gives it away. It's the marshmallow babies that eventually give him away. And I love that he even kind of does the Rick Moranis kind of approach of like, hey, buddy, and then gets roared at. Because that's exactly what would have happened in that case. But yeah, we had to have that scene, boys and girls. Okay, so then we get to have the Zool scene, or not the Zool, the Gozer scene. So here we go.
Have you come to offer yourself in sacrifice?
What?
Are you prepared to die?
No, I'm 12. Are you?
Okay, so cut it off there, but yeah, we get to have basically BB Spangler standing up to Gozer, which is another good moment. The only thing I cut out was all the awkward jokes that BB told, and
Oh yeah.
Those were great. I'm not saying that they're bad. That's basically her Ray moment, but we have to cut these things down for experience's sake. What did you think about her standing up to Gozer, Alex and Andrea?
And I think it's pretty cool.
I love that one of the constant jokes in this film is that she's 12. And so like we get lots of stuff saying like, we even saw it with the proton pack. It's like, how did you know how to fix it? Because I mean, you're 12. And then the first thing that Gozer says is, "Are you ready to offer yourself up as sacrifice?" No, I'm 12. So I love how that was set up, but I also love that we got the action movie quote of like, "Oh no, I'm not ready to die. Are you?" So the next one that we have is the epic reveal.
Hey, Flat Top! Have you missed us?
Gozer the Gozerian. The name of the county of Somerville, state of Oklahoma, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, all the members of Ducks Unlimited, the Association for the Advancement of Retired Persons, I command you under the National Invasive Species Act to depart this world immediately.
Bravo.
I think she remembers us.
Are you a god?
Ray?
Oh, come on, Ray.
Yes.
Yeah, we're all gods.
Yeah, I mean, we're all pretty dang special down here. On a personal note, I thought that we had busted up for good. I mean, it wasn't working for me. My friends didn't think so. I know yours didn't.
Okay, playtime's over. Let's toast this muffin.
All right, I have to cut it off there, but this was such a great reunion moment. And of course, we had to have the "Are you a god?" And Ray, I love that Ray's like, how do I respond now? And it took Winston and Peter both going, Ray. Talk about this moment. Seeing them back in uniform obviously was amazing. And I think one of the biggest moments is just Ray being Ray and Peter being Peter and Winston being Winston. Mm-hmm. Is like, I actually did see people complaining that Ernie Hudson as Winston Zeddemore doesn't get a whole lot of lines in this particular moment. Guys, he doesn't need them. Like, he's the serious take amongst the Ghostbusters. I think a lot of people forget that. He's the everyman walking into it. So at that point, like, having Ray go off into, by the powers vested in me by this, that makes sense for Ray. And for Winston, it's just like, let them do what they're doing.
Yeah, I just love it how Ray just goes and elaborates that whole entire speech. It's like,
and Peter's being Peter. He's like, obviously, wrap it up, Ray. Wrap it up.
He's like, not this again.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember seeing a lot of people like, you should have given Winston more to... What did he need to say? Like, everything is said through his body language like it was in the first film. So
besides, he has some good one-liner moments.
Yeah, he gets the ending one-liner. He's like, all right, let's toast this mother effer. You know? Like, he got what he needed out of that. What's your take on it, Alex?
Perfectly agree. I think it's perfectly balanced. It's perfectly synced the way it was in the original film too. Because Ray was the first to have to. Well, he was volunteered to go stand up to Gozer the first time.
Yeah.
When she asked, "Are you a god?" And then he learned, "You say yes."
Mm-hmm. But the best part, like, this is another moment where Winston gets a line, because remember, in the first movie, he was the one that yelled at Ray. When someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes. And so at that point, of course, the first one that had to respond to that was, "Come on, Ray." And it was Winston. Almost like basically saying, do I have to go through this again?
Do I have to educate you again on this?
Right. And I'm going to give some credit over to the Gozer actress, because she actually helped a lot in building the anticipation, because you'd have those moments of like her holding the dogs back and reacting, like twitching her head here and there to react to them as like, she's like, I've seen this, I've heard this before, and I'm just savoring the moment until I can crush you, kind of thing. So I'm going to give credit over to the Gozer actress. I think she did really well in conveying how Gozer would react to this reunion that's happening. So unfortunately, the big scene that I wanted to do for the clips is quiet as the grave. Pardon my joke there, but it is the Egon moment. And unfortunately, there's not really a whole lot you can do there. Watch the movie, guys. All of the ghost Egon reveal moments at the end are amazing. And in my opinion, it's probably one of the better CG portrayals. It doesn't feel like Butterface. It feels like Harold Ramis. And I had to put this in here. Although before we get into the final clip, there was one I wanted to get, but unfortunately it would have created too many issues for us. But this was another science-y kind of debate that happened with the film, was the opening of the trap. And that is that fact, if people don't remember, what was actually in the trap was Zool. So the Zool dog demon was in the trap. When they opened it, they released it, and thus BB's mom gets possessed. And I've actually seen people basically saying that there's no way that those feeble traps would have been able to hold the herald of Gozer the Gozerian. And I don't know, where are you standing on that one, Alex? Is that a bad plot device that one of the dogs got imprisoned so that Gozer could never be summoned?
I think so. I mean, that's what they were designed to do, was trap ghosts.
Well, and if people don't remember, in the beginning of the film, the trap was hidden too. So Egon didn't want anybody to find the trap either, because then at that point, then you would have had the Gozer problem, whether you liked it or not. And so I kind of like that. I get the argument where they're saying that it probably would have needed a bigger trap, but I don't know if it would have been a good idea to improvise a whole new trap, because they already had the big trap for Gozer. I don't think it would have been a good idea to implement a whole other new trap for Zool, because then people would question the Gozer trap even more. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm okay with it to that extent, because obviously it's just a way to be able to get Zool out, and then we can move the plot forward. Andrea, do you have anything to add on that one?
No.
Okay. So you didn't have a problem with the trap containing Zool, what is Zool's title? Is it just Zool the gatekeeper?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
What was the name of the
Vince
key master?
Clortho.
Oh.
He had a bunch of titles, but I can't remember what they are. I think it was just Rick Moranis just saying random stuff at the end of it. Okay, so the final clip we have is the post-credit scene, which basically sets up the new legacy, and I had to have this here because this is actually, in my opinion, one of the best moments from Winston Zeddemore in this film.
You've done very well for yourself. A lot of shelf space.
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't do it for me. I do it for my kids, and I want to be an example of what's possible.
You still covering the rent at Ray's bookshop?
Ray's going to turn a profit one of these days.
I remember the day you came in.
I came in looking for a steady paycheck. But busting ghosts with the guys taught me not to be afraid. That I had the tools and I had the talent. I started this business with one employee, and I've grown it into a thriving global enterprise. I may be a businessman, but I will always be a Ghostbuster.
Here's why this is a powerful thing. I'm going to spoil a little bit of 2016 for you guys. But obviously, do I need to point this out? Everybody got a cameo in 2016, right? Is it safe to say that you guys would have known that? Alex, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay, okay. Sorry,
Okay.
maybe we lagged or something. But yeah, so everybody got a cameo in 2016, but they also tried to not have Ghostbusters be canon in 2016. And so all of the cameos that came up, they couldn't be Ghostbusters. So for example, like Dan Aykroyd came in as a cab driver, who acted like Ray. They even had like a head bust of Harold Ramis. And the one that, in my opinion, was the most insulting was Ernie Hudson, because he was related to the Leslie Jones character in the fact that he was a New York businessman who ran a hearse driving business, and that's basically their justification for getting the Ecto-1. And then later on, he buys the firehouse and basically says, you better earn this money back to the Leslie Jones character, and they kind of have their, really dumb exchange. But with that, so that's his cameo in there. And it's one of the more insulting ones because of the fact that it doesn't tie anything related to Winston Zeddemore in the slightest. And then you have this scene where we find out that Winston, who was just looking for a steady paycheck when he went into the first film, he basically saved his money and became an international millionaire CEO. Basically, he's the Shield of the Ghostbusters now, is what they're trying to say with it. Given what I've told you about 2016, which cameo do you like better for Winston Zeddemore?
Definitely this one.
Because the fact that, like, he is earning so much money that he can pay for Ray's occult bookstore that is never going to turn a profit, and he's okay with it. Because he knows Ray. And the fact that he basically, for those who have not seen the film, he buys the firehouse again. Because if you remember in the jail conversation or the phone call conversation, some actor bought it. And so he buys the firehouse again, and they basically set it up so that now this ghost-busting family can live in the firehouse. And I love that so much more because it basically makes Winston Zeddemore into an American success story. And that's the way that should have been, instead of what 2016 did for a lot of those characters. I mean, for crying out loud, Bill Murray was basically made into a Bill O'Reilly character that constantly questions the Ghostbusters on whether or not he's Bill O'Reilly meets Walter Peck, ultimately.
Correct.
And actually dies, I think, in the movie because of them trying to disprove everything that he said about them. And so that was insulting too, but the Ernie Hudson one was just, it never sat right with me. But then we got to have this moment, and I just love it. Andrea, what did you think of this moment for Winston?
It was just a great way to end it.
Just basically kind of saying, like, oh, for all the people who are wondering, okay, how are we going to be able to pay the bills and whatnot? This is not a problem because ghost busting is going to be a thing. Because Winston's got their back. Because in the past, they had Winston's back. So I absolutely love it. And so with that, we're out of clips here. Final thoughts on this one. What would we give out of 5? What would we give Ghostbusters Afterlife?
For me, it'll be 4 out of 5.
Okay, and why did it not get that extra point?
It's like I said, I felt like you could have done more with Shandor rather than just fall back on Gozer yet again.
Mm-hmm.
I like the Gozer cameo, it's fun, but I still think Shandor could have been more interesting, especially considering, again, you got J.K. Simmons to play him.
Right. And I tend to agree, but that's one of the things that I like, that we have a sequel that can kind of fix that, is that now we can connect Ghostbusters 2 in a way, but if this had not been successful, that would have been definitely a big sticking point for me, because Ghostbusters 2 wouldn't be canon at that point, at least in my argument. Andrea, out of 5, what would you give Ghostbusters Afterlife?
4.5.
Okay, and why did it not get that extra 0.5?
Just little minor things here and there, but it was still all a great movie.
I'm right there with you. I think it's a 4.5. There are nitpicks that I have. There are points in this film that tend to drag, at least for me. But then I have that conundrum of, like, would I remove them? I don't think I would. I mean, the funniest thing is like one of the things I think you could remove is the sheriff character that you actually mentioned, because he's really not relevant, aside from he's the one girl's dad. So there are little moments, but at that point, would I remove him entirely from the film? I don't know if I would, because it's just one of those world building things that works. So 4.5 out of me, and I think that's going to go ahead and do it, unless you guys have any final thoughts you want to put towards Afterlife.
No, not from me.
Yeah, no, this is an amazing movie, and frankly, I think it helped all the better that like I had kind of absolute apathy going into it, because at that point there was nowhere to go but up, So I'm very glad about this, but I do want to end the podcast on this. We have a sequel coming, which is actually due in like a couple of weeks at this point. And I'm happy to announce that since it's coming out earlier than I actually expected, we have since talked, and I believe for our next round of movie nights that we do for that vacation, we are going to be doing Frozen Empire. Or I'm sorry, Return to Azeroth. And I'm actually excited about that, because you remember the one thing I liked about 2016? Well, it looks like Frozen Empire is going to do that. Because now we're actually looking at maybe having some stuff, like some additional lore that maybe comes from the cartoons, maybe comes from other places. I'm actually very excited about it. Have you seen any of the trailers for Frozen Empire, Alex?
Saw the initial trailer, so.
And what was your take on it?
Yeah, it looks interesting. I'm curious. I definitely want to see it.
Andrea, what did you think about it?
I liked it.
I like the fact that it seems like they're going to try and take some additional stuff and try to create their own lore. I did like that. So, and like I said, maybe that's where you get your answer, Alex, is they start tying Ghostbusters 2 in this film, now that they have that security.
Yeah. I hope so.
I kind of do as well. It actually might be cool to have the crap, I can never remember the actor's name, but the guy, he's Vigo, if he actually showed up and he was still like the director of the museum. That would be hilarious.
That'd be funny.
Peter McNichol. Yeah, he'd be great. Great.
Or even have like maybe Dana Barrett's in charge, because she did get the cameo at the end of the film. That actually might be really fun. And you mentioned this earlier in the podcast. Maybe this is where we find out about Dana's son. Is he played by the original child? Probably not.
Probably not.
I don't think that. If you're a child that young, because I think somebody actually pointed this out to me, like none of the Look Who's Talking babies are remotely involved in Hollywood at all. I would think it would be the same case for the Dana Barrett baby.
Yeah,
but
I think they were played by like twins back, and
yeah, no, it was twins. Yeah. That's right, because I remember like one of them really hated the pink goop that they did for that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, because if you're a baby, you don't. It's not like child actors. You don't stay in the business. So
usually not. Yeah.
Okay, so at that point, I am happy to say we will be reviewing Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I'm looking forward to it. It's actually one of the movies I'm looking forward to the most. And that'll go ahead and do it for this podcast. So thank you guys so much for listening in. If you are brand spanking new to this, welcome. We're very happy to have you. Leave a like on the video if you liked it, and also consider subscribing and checking out some of the other reviews that we did. Specifically, the last one that we just barely put up was of me and Alex taking on Top Gun Maverick, another legacy film that we didn't think we'd ever review, and actually turned out to be pleasantly surprising. So you can enjoy that. Also, if you're enjoying this on podcasts, you can continue to support the podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, and Player.fm. And we will see you guys for the final film that we did last year, which is Resident Evil Dead Island, because Andrea insisted that we end on a Resident Evil movie.
Hey, I didn't insist that we...
The addiction is strong, is it not, Alex?
So true.
So at that point, we will see you guys for our review of Resident Evil Dead Island. Until then, take care and have a good day or night. And we'll catch you guys